Hello and welcome to Field Study, an exploration of food and the landscape. So down here on the Isle of Wight, spring is finally here and it is absolutely beautiful. I just want to frolic in the grass like a newborn lamb. In fact, the thermometer in my greenhouse actually read 39.4 degrees at one point this week. And after last week's rain, all the plants around me are very, very happy. So we're going to take a short walk today and I'm going to show you 3 things which are good to forage for right now in March. Stay tuned. So this beautiful pale lemon meringue coloured flower that you see here is the primrose. And it's called a primrose. It's a contraction of prima rosa, which means the first rose, because it's one of the first flowers that comes out at this time of year. Especially with such like a vivid display, it really stands out in the hedgerows and stuff. And it's a lovely one from a foraging point of view because it is edible. It's slightly sweet, slightly floral. It's nothing to write home about flavour-wise, but it can really brighten up a salad. So when you're eating your meal of an evening, you definitely know that it's springtime. I've seen reference in lots of books for making a wine out of them. Even in Laurie Lee's Cider with Rosie, I think one of the old women that lives next door to them, this is one of the plants that she uses for her famous hedgerow wines. So in the recipes that I've read, you need quite a large quantity of primrose flowers. And I think that they're such a precious thing at this time of year, being a flowering plant in early spring, that grazing the whole lot of them in order to make wine would be such a shame. Not only from a visual perspective, but from the perspective of pollinators as well. So I don't recommend making wine from the wild form. If you've got loads of them in your garden, then maybe give it a go. I've got quite a few in my garden, so I might add them into a wine that I'm going to be making in a few weeks. But I wouldn't go out and sort of forage and scavenge the whole lot. It really would be a shame. So at this time of year, to identify the primrose, you're looking out for these pale yellow flowers. They're sort of like a lemon cream, like the colour of an old lady's bathroom. And in the middle of the flower, you've got this beautiful sort of richer, more chromatic, more vivid yellow. Each flower will have 5 petals, and in the middle of the petal will be a slight indentation that turns it into a bit of a heart shape. So this can actually make it look like it's got more petals than it has. So look at your flower individually and see if it's got 5 petals. The flower itself will be coming from the middle of a rosette of these wonderfully crinkly leaves. They're like someone's crinkled up tissue paper. And the stalk will have this downy white fluff all over it. The leaves have got this lovely bubbly, crinkly texture when you rub them in your hands, and the edges of them are sort of like slightly waved and crinkly. Now I forgot to say that the leaves of the primrose are actually edible as well. They got sort of like a crinkly texture on the tongue. And I'm not too keen on them, to be perfectly honest. They've got a flavour that it took me absolutely ages to sort of pin down and sort of work out what it was. But like if you pick a young one like this, sort of from the middle of the rosette. So even the leaf has got sort of like fragrant sort of floral characteristics, but to me it reminds me of cheap white wine, and I cannot get that sort of that flavour out of my head when I'm eating it. So it's one that you can incorporate into salads and stuff, but for me it just needs a lot of balancing out with the right dressing and things. But who knows, you guys might be keen on it. I'm just not too enamoured by the leaves. Right, back to the video. That's a cool moss. What is that? Thank you very much to everyone that joined in on the live stream last week. It was a lot of fun. Loads of good questions from you guys. And sorry I had to cut it short. But I'm going to be making it a regular thing. So once every fortnight or once every week, I'll go live and you guys can ask me whatever you want. Any subject. We had loads of different subjects in the last one, from dinosaurs to my favourite plants, all sorts of good stuff. I'll make sure it's on like a Friday or a Saturday night so as many of you can join in as possible. And if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments section below, or join in with the chat on the live stream, and I'll try and answer as many things as I possibly can. Right, it is a gorgeous day. I'm overdressed, which is the first time in months I've got too many layers on, and it feels glorious. So let's carry on our walk through the great British countryside, and I'll show you some more plants which are delicious. Turns out the whole world's one giant salad bowl at this time of year. Who knew? So growing in hedgerows absolutely everywhere now is one of our most abundant and nutritious greens. Now the nettle is often overlooked, but it is one of our most nutritious and most abundant wild edible plants that we have around, and this is the perfect time of year to be picking. So after the winter, the plant is waking up and putting all of its energy in putting out these fleshy tops, and you can see them shining out in the hedgerows at the moment. They're a beautiful, vivid, almost lime green, and they are lovely. And this is when they're at their most delicious. They have the highest culinary value now in springtime. Later on in the year, as they grow up and get big long stems, they're useful for other things, but as soon as they flower and go to seed, they are no longer good from an edibility point of view. They can act as a diuretic and make you need a wee a lot, and they aren't very good for your kidneys. So this is the perfect time of year to be eating nettles. So these are all of last year's nettle stalks that you see around me, and underneath them there is so many beautiful fresh green nettle tops. One of my favourite things to do with them at this time of year is eat the nettle tops raw. They act as like a pick-me-up. The plant is interesting in itself. The little stinging hairs that it's got, the tiny hypodermic needles that contain the stinging toxin, actually contain a human neurotransmitter. They contain serotonin. So that's how the sting gets from our skin to our brain that fast, which is absolutely fascinating. Now, to get rid of those stinging hairs, all you need is something long sleeved like this, or sometimes I carry a little bit of cloth around with me or some leather, and all you've got to do is rub the nettle between two surfaces. And what this does is it snaps all of those stinging hairs and turns them from little needles into a brilliant, fleshy nettle mush. So as long as you crush it down really, really well, you shouldn't get stung in the mouth, and it's not so bad if you do either. So pop it in the back of your mouth and chew. It is fantastic. It is fresh, it is green, it is grassy, there's sort of overtones of cucumber. It is a beautiful thing. So yeah, I'd really recommend going out there and trying some of these nettle tops that are around and abundant at the moment, and try them raw. Give yourself a challenge. It's not as mad as it sounds. There is a traditional type of salad that's made in parts of Turkey where they get the stinging nettle and they roll it with a rolling pin to squash all of the hairs, and then they dress it, and it is absolutely lovely. You definitely need to try that one. Another interesting use for the nettle that goes far beyond making a boring old nettle soup is using it as a rennet substitute for making cheese. Now, if you steep the leaves about an equal amount of water to like leaf matter, if you steep them in hot water and boil them and simmer them for about half an hour, I think, let it cool, you can actually curdle milk with it. So you can make all sorts of things like soft cheeses as well. There are loads of plants that you can use as a rennet substitute in order to curdle the milk for cheese. However, nettle is one of the ones that is really, really well documented. They use it in lots of parts of the world. Look at the shoots on this bramble. That's a beautiful sign of spring. Won't be long until they're about this big and we can start picking them. But I'll do that on a video at a later date. They really do make an incredibly delicious tea, and also if you're a home winemaker, if you make homebrew, their tannin content means that you can use it instead of powdered grape tannin in order to get like a better mouthfeel for your wines. Loads of uses. Again, another often overlooked edible plant. So many ladybirds out today. This one here, look. Oh, and he's gone. Now this is another excellent edible plant. This is the red dead nettle, or as they call it in Russia, the kind nettle. So it's called a dead nettle because it isn't actually a stinging nettle. So I can touch it, there are absolutely no stings on these leaves. This is actually a member of the mint family, and you can tell by this sort of, these whirls of flowers towards the top. Nettle will never have showy flowers on it. The flowering parts of the nettle are just like pendulous green things, whereas these have these beautiful little flowers all the way around in a whirl. Also, another way that you can tell that it's a member of the mint family is the fact that it has a square stem. Can you see that? So if you roll it through your fingers like this, you can feel the ridges, the edges of the square stem. But yeah, this is an excellent and abundant edible plant that you'll find in your hedgerows at this time of year. There might be a couple of its cousins out as well, which are equally as good as an edible. There is yellow archangel, which has the same shape with sort of variegated leaves and yellow flowers at the top, and the white dead nettle, which looks similar to this, but as you guessed, it has white flowers. They can be used, so you can use it like a spinach substitute, as a green. You can cook it down, like lightly blanch it, don't boil the hell out of it. And yeah, it's just a useful thing. Now I feel like I always forget to try it on camera and tell you how it tastes. So red dead nettle. So when eaten raw like that, it has a beautifully lightly perfumed flavour. It isn't as intense as other members of the mint family, such as ground ivy. It's almost sagey, and it has sort of a floral thing going on, and then sort of like a blue cheese thing going on to my palate. I know that sounds very, very strange, but bear with me. It's a very, very nice green. It makes a good base for a salad. It's nice along with lots of crunchy things like pennywort. And it looks pretty as well. These little flowers on the top, they look absolutely gorgeous. And towards the top of the plant, you often get like this blush of wine red with the new growth, has lots of anthocyanins in. And yeah, it looks gorgeous. It's a very common plant that appears loads of places in the Northern Hemisphere, and it has a rich culinary tradition because of it. So it's definitely one that you should go out and pick and experiment with in your kitchen. Let me know in the comments if anyone else can taste the sort of Stilton blue cheese, that sort of Roquefort thing going on. I don't mean like the tang or the pungency. I mean, there's something else in it that just reminds me of that. So yeah, or I could just be going completely mental. Let me know in the comments below. It seems to have happened violently, almost just like that. Yeah, everything's become warmer. Everything's started to push up through the ground in this beautiful green colour. The air is full of bird song and flying insects, and it's getting me very, very excited for the year ahead. It's been a very long winter. I mean, the winter's been as long as winter always is, however, it's felt like a very, very long winter. So to be here in the sunshine is a blessing. Time. If you're going to make anything, it's important to make time, to come out and observe the changing of the seasons. I always say it's one of the greatest spectacles on earth, and so many people miss it nowadays because they're distracted with other stuff. But there's absolutely nothing that beats it. You've got to make time. As the fisherman Chris Yates once said, "Any fool can make money, show me a man that can make time." I'm walking down a beautiful patch of road towards the coastline, and I've come across something which I didn't expect to see. Now, I've been walking this way possibly, I don't know, I come down here almost once a week. I've been walking it since I was about, I don't know, 8 years old, and I have never noticed this plant here, and it's got me very excited. This growing here with these nice fresh green leaves coming out is a wild gooseberry. And look at the size of them thorns that it's got on there. So yeah, it's a really, really prickly plant, and it's sort of unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. It's got these, a gooseberry leaf looks like this. Gooseberry leaves look like this, so they're sort of like a dinosaur's footprint with a crinkly edge. It's got that sort of trifoliate leaf, and yeah, these incredibly spiky spines on. Yeah, there really is nothing like a fresh, crisp gooseberry on a hot summer's day, so I'm really looking forward to showing you that a little bit later on in the season. And I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this week. The Coast Guard helicopter is now doing manoeuvres just above me, so it's getting very tricky to film because all the audio is pretty much unusable. So I'm going to go down to the beach and have a lovely couple of hours just sitting in the sunshine. Oh well, it is what it is. I hope you found something in there that was useful. I hope you enjoyed coming on a walk with me today. And it is definitely spring. Winter is gone. Good riddance. Hope you had a good weekend and have a good week lined up ahead of you. All going well, I'm going to be going live again this Friday night. I'll put the date of that on the screen now. So keep an eye out for a post. I'll be telling you exactly when I'm going to be starting the live stream. Right, until next week, take care.